When's the last time you took your kids boating? And I obviously not everybody has a boat, and I'm not talking about having to take them out on a big cruise or even on a junket or whatever else. I'm just talking about spending time with them. In my case, all I've got is a canoe. Now, I used to have a motor for it, but, well, it's not running anymore. And most of the time that I take the canoe out, I just take it with paddles. One of the kids had suggested we should take the canoe out. And I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea. So for our Saturday outing this weekend, we just took the canoe over to a local lake, and I took the kids out. Now, here's the thing. They didn't know what they were doing. But the first time I got in a canoe, I didn't either. And so I resisted that urge to correct every movement, and I just tried to offer some friendly correction without being too critical. And, I mean, look, obviously, a former military, occasionally it comes across a little gruffer than I really intended to. But I think eventually we got into a rhythm where they understood that my corrections were not meant to be critical, but to be about survival and making sure that we're piloting the boat correctly. And at first I had one of the kids sitting up front and I would paddle in the back, and eventually I ended up sitting in the middle of the canoe and letting two of the different kids and rotate around, one of them be in the front, one of them in the back, getting them the opportunity to be the captain, because, the captain is the one that sits in the back of the canoe. I think that it was really good for all of us. It was good for me to not be in complete control. In fact, a couple of times I just sat on the beach and let the kids take the canoe by themselves out onto the water. They were all wearing life jackets. That's one clear rule I always have. And part of it, of course, is being here in Alaska. The water is usually much colder than people realize. If you go in the water, there's a good chance you are going to get, hit with shock or whatnot. So we always wear life jackets, and the kids did very well. If there were any behavior problems, I did have a 5-year-old with me a couple times. He had to come and sit out. But generally speaking, the kids were well behaved. They listened to my instruction, and they learned, so that by the time we were getting close to them, we were only out there for a couple of hours, they were booking it. I'm sitting there in the middle of the canoe, and they're just moving, and I'm like, wow, you guys are doing great. Parenting tip: spend time with your kids. You don't have to be an expert to teach them stuff. Number 2, praise lavishly and criticize gently. Tip number 3, take risks and let them have the opportunity to fail. And I mean, at one point, they weren't really listening well to my instruction, and they weren't really going anywhere, just kind of spinning the boat around as they were fighting against each other. But eventually they realized that that's not working, and they asked me some questions, and I gave them some pointers, and they got back on track. Okay, so hope this helps for those of you dads especially who struggle with, well, I don't feel like I have the time to get to know my kids. Take a couple of hours and go down and spend some time outside. Doesn't have to be boating, doesn't have to be fishing. Those are things I enjoy. Do something you enjoy and invite your kids to be a part of it. They will appreciate it forever. You have any questions for me about parenting? I'm not an expert per se, but I do have 7 kids, so I might have something to pass on to you. Send me an email, steve@radiofreespeech.com. I would love to respond to you. And, if you'd like to, we could even set up a little phone interview, and I can call you, and we can do a podcast together. Once again, that email, steve@radiofreespeech.com.